Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host. B's having some dinner. We just got stopped in Pine Bluff, Wyoming, which, if you know where Pine Bluff is, I could chuck a football to Nebraska from here, and I don't have a good arm anymore. So yeah, right on the border of Nebraska, right on I-80. So we rolled up 670 miles today. We were in Wells, Nevada when we left this morning. I stopped at the terminal in Salt Lake City. I was kind of disappointed because in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna stop. I'm not gonna get anything to eat. Sorry, got a little dust in my eyes when I was taking the dog out. I'm not gonna stop anywhere to get anything to drink. I'm just gonna drive straight to the terminal in Salt Lake City, which is right around. It's pretty much exactly 3 hours from Wells, and I have my foot in it. I got to get this load to Illinois by Tuesday morning, so I don't have much time to mess around. So I get over there and I get into the inbound, and I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure the criteria they use to decide when to change tires on the trailers, because the tires I had were, they were worn a bit, but, they would have passed the DOT inspection certainly, and I didn't have any real concerns with them. But the dude decided, and I'm not questioning his judgment at all. He's the professional. These guys are good. And the cool thing about the inbound at Prime is they really it's like a pit crew. I mean, they get on it right away. They don't make you wait around. I know inbound lines when I was at night I would just avoid them. I just wouldn't go to them. It wasn't a requirement to go to them, or maybe it wasn't. I just blew it off. But it wasn't like you couldn't get. You could get in the terminal without going, and it was always painful. So I appreciate these guys. They fueled my reefer, took care of everything, changed 3 tires, and I was able to, because my goal going into Salt Lake City was not to get the 3 new tires. My goal was actually to shower, because the Flying J that I stopped at last night, the showers were out. And just as an aside, I asked when I went inside, hey, do you know when the showers are going to be back up? And the lady was like, well, we're trying to get somebody to come out here, but they want us to pay for the emergency rate. And I'm thinking, I didn't say this, but I thought it was a little naive of her to think that any plumber or any repair person wouldn't want an emergency rate, because it was a Saturday and it's flipping Wells, Nevada. If you've been through Wells, you know what's there. There's 3 truck stops, 2 brothels, and a few homes. Oh, and there's there's a new hotel there. That's about it, right? I'd be shocked if there's actually a plumber that lives in Wells, Nevada. I could be wrong. I know with what I mentioned, there are probably people that are laying pipe there, but not fixing the showers at the truck stop, if you know what I'm saying. So anyway, I get over to the Salt Lake terminal, and my goals were to get a shower, use the facilities, get a shower, get some breakfast, and and then and get my truck washed, because my truck's absolutely filthy. I only got one of those goals accomplished, because the cafe there is closed on Saturdays and Sundays. I didn't realize that. I guess the only times I'd ever been there during the week. And then the truck wash was also closed. So anyway, I got in and out of there quickly. We've rolled across all of Utah, all of Wyoming basically today, and so we'll get over into Iowa tomorrow and then to get this load delivered. So the cool thing about trucking is you see some interesting things. every day. Sometimes it's just a crazy wreck. And I'm not saying it's interesting, like if somebody's badly injured. I'm never interested in that. I mean, I am, but I'm not. In other words, I don't have this morbid curiosity about that. What always interests me about wrecks is, like, I try to, especially if there's a truck involved, I always say to myself, how did that happen? Like, what went on in the 30 seconds, because that's a lifetime when you're on the road, in the 30 seconds before this guy wrecked, before he, left the highway, rolled over in the median, crashed into somebody, whatever it is, right? Like, what was happening? And I do that just, kind of like from having been in the military, and also even maybe practicing law, where you try to figure out why things happen, right? And understand causation. And so I feel like that's part of my job in being safety conscious, is try to understand what mistakes other people have made and not make them myself. So, but today I didn't see anything that dramatic, but there's a lot of construction in Wyoming. So there was a huge backup headed westbound. But right before I got to the backup, I was coming down a mountain, and at the bottom of it, there's an overpass that goes over a dirt road, but there's no exit there. And so as I'm coming down, I notice a semi going under I-80. And then I noticed another one following close behind. And at first I was like, well, that's kind of odd. Maybe they're going out there to get hay or something, because it's just all like pasture land, rangeland, whatever you want to call it. And I noticed that they had come down like a service road, but not really a service road, but just this gravel road that was beside the westbound lane, but coming down really steep. And then as I looked in the cloud of dust that they had already left, there's a Crete Carrier dry van guy coming down there, and I'm like, okay. And then behind him, like a bunch of bunch of cars, right? And I'm like, all right. So these guys, I'm assuming it was guys, they all decided we're not going to wait for this traffic. Which, by the way, at the point where they're crossing under 80, the traffic's basically moving probably 55 or 60 in a single file. But there's a backup at the merge point. That's just how it goes, right? And I'm like, dude, I know Crete has a terminal over in Cheyenne, but I'm like, I've been all over Wyoming, both in a truck and just in my life, and even state highways, like the yellow sign state highways. There's some sketchy ass roads sometimes, and this wasn't even that. It was just a gravel road going through somebody's land. And I'm like, I hope you guys know what you're doing, because that's going to be really hard to explain if you got to get a tow. But bless their hearts, they're I hope it was worth it. I hope it was worth it. But you know what? My trainer used to say, some days traffic is your clock, and some days you just got to eat it, right? I mean, going off-road and going gravel biking, whatever you want to call it, it's not advisable in one of these things. I don't care how skilled the driver you are. Yeah, it's probably not worth it. I mean, the time, even if they saved an hour, which I doubt they did, but even if they did, I just can't imagine it was worth it. But anyway, hope it turned out okay for them. So that's my kind of my story of the day. And then one other observation before I tell you what we're really going to talk about. One other observation is there is no traffic jam in America that a prime truck is not in. I'm just throwing that out there. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I've not seen a traffic jam anywhere that there hasn't been a prime truck in. So it's just part of our life. So somebody asked me in a comment, actually, and this person I do not believe is a truck driver. When I mentioned in one of my videos the other day that I was going to start training, they said, well, hey, you know, what is it that you look for, you expect out of your trainee? You know, and he kind of alluded to being a four-wheeler, and he said he was just curious. And I apologize, I don't have his name, but I do believe he's a subscriber. And so I was thinking about it, and I said I would do this video. So some of the things that I will, you know, the expectations I'll have from my trainee, in addition to like I don't smoke, and I don't want a smoker on the truck. I don't really want somebody that uses tobacco products, so no vaping, no dipping. I'm not an anti-tobacco crusader by any means, you know. It's just not something I want on my truck. So that would be one thing. And then I would also like somebody that's fairly committed to personal hygiene, for obvious reasons. And when I say fairly committed, I don't mean that they're going to be like, but I also don't want somebody that's like a clean freak, that's going to be freaked out if we have to just stop at a rest area and we don't actually get a shower that day. You know what I'm saying? So somewhere, happy medium. We'll take a shower and wash themselves well when it's available. But if they don't get one every day, it's not the end of the world. Okay, so that's kind of like the preliminary stuff. But, you know, when I train people in the military, you know, when I train people in boot camp, the purpose of boot camp is actually to get people ready for further training. It certainly is an indoctrination period, and you know, teaching skills that are similitudes of other things that they'll be expected to perform. And one of the examples we used to give is, if I can't teach you to fold out a locker, meaning fold your clothes and put them in a locker 100% correct, even when somebody that's very demanding is looking at it, then I'm not sure that we could trust you to follow instructions on, I don't know, like working on a fighter aircraft or a nuclear reactor or a missile fire control system or something. So that was the idea. Everything was built around creating somebody that was going to be a valuable asset. So my approach to training is, you know, that the trainee needs to be ready to be trained. And so in this case, being ready to be trained would mean when they come to the truck, for example, and, you know, we're going to get a load, we got to get the show on the road, right? I don't, you know, a half a day into it, I don't want them saying, hey, I got to stop at a Walmart because I don't have any toilet articles, or I only have 2 pair of underwear with me, or I didn't bring any boots, so I just need to stop and buy some. You know, that. I want somebody that's ready to roll, because that's our job, right? Like, we got to get stuff from A to B, we got to do it safely, but we do have time constraints. That's one thing. Another thing is willing to accept advice, criticism, and I don't think criticism is a bad thing or a bad word, and also just teaching, right? In other words, somebody that's got a little bit of a hard shell. I don't want some, you know, if I say, hey, you did that wrong, I don't want somebody that sulks, right? Because I'm not going to just say you did it wrong. I'm going to say you did it wrong, and here's why. Here's what wasn't right about that. Because you can be successful at doing something, but not have it be done correctly, if that makes sense. So somebody could back a truck into a parking spot successfully, meaning they didn't hit anybody, they didn't hit anything, right? They didn't damage anything, and they're parked semi-straight, right? But they might have totally missed something, and it was just dumb luck that they didn't have a wreck or back into somebody. And I give you an example. When I was in CDL school, I just happened to be backing up a truck one day, and the senior instructor was actually in the passenger seat, and he had just taught us straight backing. But the thing is, when I backed, I had already backed trailers probably 1,000 times because I had been a jockey, and I backed them in really tight places at an LTL terminal, dark, just not perfect conditions. So when I'm out on the pad and there's nothing around me, I'm just like, wah, I backed it up. I got no issues with straight backing, right? Daylight, nothing around me. It was just back up through some cones, right? But one thing he said to me, I didn't make any mistakes as far as I didn't hit any cones. I didn't, I got it done in a timely manner. But one thing he said to me, and it's stuck in my head all this time, is he goes, you don't look in your right-hand mirror enough. Because I knew I was straight backing, right? So I just looked in my left mirror and backed up. I just lined myself up and went. And he's like, you gotta get used to looking in both mirrors. And now when I back, even if I'm straight backing, I hear his voice in my head, and I'm like, oh yeah, I need to look over there. So stuff like that. I didn't get angry that he, criticized me. I was like, okay, that's a weakness. And any weakness will be exposed at some point. The other thing that I hope the trainee is, an attribute they have, is that they're not afraid of hard work. And what I mean by that is that they're perseverant. Even when they're tired, they have the ability to focus and get a task done safely. I see a lot of truck drivers that, as soon as it starts raining hard, there are these guys that will fly by you, right? They're going 80 miles an hour. But the minute they get in a construction zone, they're a bundle of nerves. Their driving is sketchy. They shy away from staying in their lane because there's a Jersey wall beside them, and they're afraid to get close to it to stay in their own lane. Or it starts pouring down rain, there's just a deluge all of a sudden, and they're immediately on the brakes, throwing their flashers on. They can't, when everything's fine, they're just blowing down the highway. But the minute that they have to focus and really block out everything, they have trouble doing it. And I'm hoping that the person can train themselves to just lock on to that like a laser beam, when we got something that has to be done, and gets done safely. And I just hope that we have some fun. I think it'll be fun. I think we'll get to roll, and that they'll get used to the pace, and also that there's nothing at home that hasn't been taken care of. A lot of times people come out here and they got issues at home, right? And when I was getting ready to take the bar exam, one of the things, that pieces of advice they gave us was, hey, this is not a time, when you're prepping for the bar exam, it's not a time to be starting a new relationship. It's not a time to be going through a divorce. It's not a time to be moving, although I think, no, we had already moved before I started, but there needs to be, when you're in this especially when you're in this training phase, you got to have a single-minded focus on that. And having drama at home is not the way to do it. Like I met a guy at another company, and he had his girlfriend on the truck, but he was complaining about how little he was making because he was paying child support for his kids. Which, by the way, I never feel bad about a guy that has to pay child support. It's like, you had fun, now you get to pay. But, you know, and then he was saying how he didn't have much money, but then he was going to buy a purebred dog puppy. And I'm like, dude, why don't you go get a dog at the pound? They're great. That's where B came from, right? She's a rescue. And he's like, no, my girlfriend really wants it. And you know, I didn't have anything to say to that. I just, you know, y'all can tell what I thought about it. But I want somebody that's ready to roll, that kind of is focused on what we're going to be doing. Because I'm going to be entrusting my life and the lives of the motoring public to them, right? At some point, I'm going to have to be in the seat over here, over there. I also want somebody that reacts when I say something. Not panics, but if I say, hey, you need to slow down right now, I don't want them to get around to it when they feel like that's just something they got to do right then and there. If I say, you know, full Jake brake, they got to react. They got to, you know where the stuff is, and you know, we'll go over the truck obviously, but you know, those are some things that I'm looking for. I want everybody to be done, and when that 30,000 miles is done, I want them to feel like they're a better driver, but I also want all of us in one piece. So I don't know if that's I don't know if that helps at all, but that's just my philosophy on training. Everybody's got a different way of doing it. I have seen people get yelled at when they don't do a great job backing. I watched it the other day, and I was just like, because they rolled the windows up. Like, my windows were down, their windows were down. Once they got in there, they rolled their windows up. Like, I think the trainer told the trainee who was backing into this loading dock to roll the windows up. And then he was just like, I could tell he was yelling at the guy. I feel like that's counterproductive, but maybe it works for him. So anyway, be safe out there. We'll update you soon, and thanks for tuning in. Bye.